Enjoy early access to ad-free episodes each week when you subscribe to Wedding Planning Podcast Premium in Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show. Hey there, it's Cara, and thank you so much, as always, for joining me here on the Wedding Planning Podcast. This week, we are talking about your top regrets when it comes to wedding expenses. Now, if you are listening, I may dare assume that you're not yet married. So these are, in hindsight, thoughts from listeners who are married already, and they're going to look back and share with us what they regret spending money on. So let's get right into it, shall we? And the first thing we're going to talk about is overspending on their venue. Now, couples often book a venue they love and get so swept up in the excitement of it all that they go ahead without factoring in hidden fees. There are a lot of hidden fees associated with venues, such as service charges, overtime, working with required vendors. This can seriously inflate the price that you are quoted for your venue. So here are some basic tips to avoid overspending on your venue. Number one is, of course, please always set a budget. Okay, decide what percentage of your total wedding budget you are comfortable committing towards the venue. And there's no required amount here. It could be 20%, it could be 60%, whatever is right for you, but do go into that process with a number in mind. And you will need to include fees, taxes, service charges, rentals, and catering minimums in this venue amount, not just the rental fee for a venue. So if a clubhouse at your area lakeside park costs $2,000 to rent out, that's not your venue budget. Okay, $2,000 is not your venue budget because there are all of these other things that are going to stack up on top of that venue budget. So that's where couples make that mistake. Step number 2 to avoid overspending on your budget is ask for a full cost breakdown upfront. So again, this builds on the point we just talked about. Don't rely on the base price. You need to also ask for all-inclusive package information, catering or bar minimums, setup and cleanup fees, service charges and gratuities, overtime or any other hourly fees that you'll be charged, any charges for security, valet, parking costs. Tip number 3 for not overspending on your venue, be flexible with your wedding date and time. Off-peak seasons, weekdays, or brunch weddings often cost a lot less than your standard Saturday evening wedding. Venues might also offer discounts for Sunday weddings or in off-season. Also here, make sure you understand any special rules your venue has about working with preferred vendors. If you are required to work with a set list of preferred vendors, this may seriously limit your budget options. And then ask if there's any buyout fee if you do want to go ahead and use your own vendors. I'm not saying that applies in every case, but it's just a question to ask. You also want to check the bar policy. Are you allowed to supply your own beer, liquor, wine? If you are, that's a huge cost savings. If you are going to be assessed corkage fees, that's also really important information to know. And always, always, always read the contract carefully. Make sure that all fees are spelled out before you sign. If you have any questions, if you have any doubts that what you're seeing is not the actual final cost, then ask. As the consumer, as the client, you have the right to know what you are going to be charged for, so don't be shy about asking those questions. And then also make sure that you clarify cancellation, reschedule, and any refund policies that that venue has in place. And to wrap this point up on avoiding overspending on your venue, I would always encourage you to tour multiple venues. Like I said at the beginning, sometimes it's really easy to get swept up in the excitement and swept up in that moment and want to book maybe the first or even the second place that you see. Do yourselves a favor and look at a handful of different options so that you can really be able to compare the different pricing, the different policies, and whatnot, and just really set yourselves up for success in having as much information as possible before you make that decision. Okay, next on our list of wedding spending regrets is over-the-top flowers and decorations. Now, I know, trust me, Pinterest-worthy setups are very tempting, but elaborate centerpieces and florals are very costly and they do not last. The same goes for elaborate ceremony archways, premium chairs, premium furniture, and other costly decor items like custom lighting, draping, chair covers, linen upgrades. We'll touch on this again later in the show, but do yourselves a favor. And my general rule of thumb is keep it simple. Also, in the decorations regret are custom signs, and some common regrets and thoughts about signage were that the signs were too small, they were not noticed by our guests, we forgot to put them out. This is a common theme, and also that they didn't photograph well. A general rule that you might find helpful when thinking about your wedding decor is to prioritize the spaces that will actually be photographed. The majority of your keepsake wedding photos will happen probably in your ceremony space and then your portraits as a couple and with your families. So, for example, dedicating your decoration budget, or the bulk of your decoration budget, I should say, to an amazing ceremony archway that will be a centerpiece of your photos, that might make more sense than spending that money on 10 small floral centerpieces for your reception tables. When they're all spread out like that, they're not going to make as big of a visual impact. So you might want to consider that as you're kind of looking at how to allocate your budget for decorations. Wedding expense regret number 3, the wedding dress and the alterations that were required. This is another very exciting moment when you find the perfect wedding dress, but in the excitement of that moment, a $3,000 dress may seem like an absolute must-have, but overspending on your wedding dress is a really common regret. Many brides share that they would have been just as happy with a less expensive or an off-the-rack style. A listener shares that after spending $1,500 in alterations for my $2,500 dress, I wish I had just kept looking for something that fit me better to begin with instead of trying to change the train and the sleeves. Very valuable hindsight advice. And on the topic of wedding dresses, a quick personal note here, one that I'll throw in. My mom gifted me wedding dress preservation after our wedding, which was so generous and so kind. But my wedding dress has been in a box, untouched in the rafters of our garage for over a decade. It's a totally personal decision to save your dress or not to save it. But if you're on the fence about preserving your dress and you're looking to cut costs as much as possible, you may want to consider just having it cleaned and reselling it, or simply donating it and just saving that cost of preservation. Again, a very personal decision for you to make, but that's my own personal experience with that. Wedding spending regret number 4, extravagant invitations. This one is super popular. High-end invitations, foil printing, custom designs. This stuff adds up so quickly. And couples often wish that they had gone the simpler route, especially since most invites are tossed in the trash shortly after received. Let's be honest about that. I'm a huge proponent of keeping your invitations simple. And then, of course, you can always take advantage of online RSVP features on your wedding website to keep yourselves organized and also to save even more money on postage. Another wedding spending regret are printables. So, for example, here are wedding programs, menus, and custom napkins. Among the thoughts shared here, half of what we had printed out was never even taken. So, imagine a stack of ceremony programs, and half of them, no one ever picked one up. The napkins that we had custom printed were not set out because nobody knew where they were. Another popular item you may want to just save the money on: expensive shoes. I can't count how many times I've seen a bride spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on beautiful wedding shoes to literally wear them for an hour, have bleeding and blistered feet, and just give up and change into flip-flops. You can buy a beautiful pair of shoes that does not cost a ton of money. Another spending regret: too many extra events. So think about welcome dinners, rehearsal dinners, after parties, farewell brunches. This all adds up. And not only adds up financially, but it also adds up mentally. And many couples say that in hindsight, they felt way too stretched, both emotionally and financially. Being on for multiple days in a row during such an exciting time can be really, really exhausting. And that's something to consider as you start out in the planning of like more of a wedding weekend setup. I absolutely love making your wedding a whole weekend long celebration. I feel very passionately about this topic and have a series of episodes on how exactly to plan a really, really successful wedding weekend. However, extending the time spent together can be done in very, very simple and very affordable ways. So, the spending regret that we just hosted too many things, this can be mitigated by keeping it simple. So, for example, in one case, a couple rented a lounge so that after their rehearsal dinner, everyone could meet up for a welcome party. This event was hosted by the couple. It included catered bar style food and an open tab at the bar. After a huge rehearsal dinner, all that additional food was completely unnecessary. And although everyone had a great time, in hindsight, they would have planned it very differently. Now, another way to accomplish the same goal, that goal being just to extend hanging out with one another for another couple of hours, you can have some canned cocktails, seltzers, beer, and wine in a cooler and meet in a suite at the hotel, or meet at a friend or a family member's house or backyard. So, as you're formulating these things, always start from the baseline of keep it simple. And another expense regret is too much catering, too much food. So, related to the point we just talked about, couples often overestimate how much food or drink is needed, especially on dessert tables, late night snacks, and the happy hour component, or the cocktail hour, excuse me. Hand passed hors d'oeuvres versus charcuterie platters. This can make a huge difference in your bottom line price tag. Basically, my advice here is to keep it simple unless there's an upgrade that is specifically meaningful to you. Providing a cocktail hour spread, a nice dinner, and dessert is plenty. I know all the extras are tempting, but if you're looking for places to save, this category of additional late night snacks and extra desserts on the table, this is a good category for the cutting room floor. Next, expense regret: unnecessary rentals. So we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the show in relation to your venue, but some unnecessary rentals that couples regretted spending money on are specialty chairs, charger plates, custom lounge areas. These things felt like a must during our planning, but they were not noticed or appreciated by our guests. That's a quote from one listener. Feeling like you need to upgrade tablecloths, chair covers, napkin rings, charger plates. Unless this is all stuff that you feel really, really passionately about, I would say you can skip all of those upgrades and 90% of your guests will never even notice. So if it's not worth it to you to potentially add a couple $1,000s to your venue bill or your rental bill, then just go ahead and skip all of those things. And then to wrap up today's conversation, I want to offer a word of caution on taking on too much in terms of the do-it-yourself department. So, for all the stories of things that couples regret spending their money on, there are equally as many regrets about spending their time on certain things. So, please, please, please protect your time. It is very precious, especially right now. Just because you technically can do something yourself does not mean it's worth your time or your energy. All of the months that you spend researching, budgeting, and carefully planning out this amazing wedding are completely meaningless if you wind up alone in your hotel room the night before your wedding, just completely stressed out and finishing do-it-yourself centerpieces and DIY craft favor projects while everyone else is downstairs hanging out together and having fun. I can't tell you how many couples get to their wedding day and they are so exhausted and overwhelmed by all that they have taken on that they can't even enjoy themselves. And I really don't want that to happen to you. It's a careful balance with ongoing check-ins for your budget, your priorities, and of course, always your mental health and sanity. All right, that wraps up our conversation on wedding spending regrets. If you have anything you'd like to add or topics or questions that you'd love to hear about on a future episode, I am all ears. You can be in touch on our website, weddingplanningpodcast.co/contact. Thank you again for being here. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll meet again next week, same time, same place.